Hello, and welcome to Wired for Change. I'm Amy Yee. About 10 years ago, I was working in digital transformation as a consultant, and I noticed that there seemed to be some key ingredients to a digital transformation team in terms of the roles and the types of people that you need on the team in order to be successful and to execute. And what I did was I categorized these people into different archetypes, essentially. Being a user experience geek and researcher at the time, that's the kind of thing that I did in order to think through user experience. And I put together the idea that you need, for example, someone who understands technology and can explain it on the team. You need someone who is a great communicator on the team. You need someone who is a charismatic leader on the team. And there are certain types of people who just are terrific on a digital transformation team. So I thought that I would do a little mini series here on Wired for Change to introduce these different archetypes. And I put into place a historical figure that I've chosen to represent each one of these that you can then go and reference as ideas. And then you can think about which of these roles that you might play. But for me, I created baseball cards, going back to the idea of these historical figures, with the idea that you can collect them all on your team, or there's one that resonates with you that is your favorite, or you can arrange these baseball cards into different, tiger teams within the team to solve certain problems, and think about how that type of a mindset, whether you have it today or whether it is part of somebody that you have today on your team, or it's a gap perhaps that you have on your team, can play a role in helping to solve that problem. That is a common digital transformation problem. So I hope you enjoy this episode and this idea, and I would love to hear who resonates with you and what other suggestions that you might have. As you might imagine, if you're anyone who has worked through digital transformation, it's also very hard to think about how many people you need on that team. For me, when I originally put this idea together, we had 13 that were identified. I've since had to update this, and now I'm at 16. And you may not have the luxury of having 16 people playing that digital transformation team role for you, but maybe there are people who exist on other teams, or maybe there are people who play more than one of these roles for you. Hopefully, you're not somebody who has to have all 16 roles in your head that you're playing with a multiple personality kind of thing going for you, or multiple roles and multiple hats, as many do in transformation hold multiple hats. Hopefully you don't have 16. There's a famous kind of guideline that is used where a team shouldn't be bigger than can be fed by two, I'm going to say, extra large pizzas. 16 people is really pushing it a little bit, but for the purposes of this exercise, I'll keep it at 16 for now, knowing that people can hold multiple roles as well. The way I'm going to introduce this is to frame it around a certain kind of problem, as I had said, like a theme. So the theme might be change leadership, or the theme might be refining and redesigning your processes during transformation, or the theme might be procurement, for example, within transformation. Today, we're going to look at the innovation playbook in transformation. And for that, I've pulled out 3 key players. And these key players are the futurist, the information alchemist, and the closer. Let's explore the problem a little bit more. So the issue here in transformation is that balance of innovation, which can be thought of as a driver for transformation, as well as execution. I've seen organizations that have lots of little bits of innovation and they think of themselves as very innovative, but it's hard for them to follow through. And so they might start 10, 15, 20 projects within a small time frame, but they may not get off the ground, or they may not be scalable or sustainable for the future. And while there's no perfect way to guarantee that it's going to be sustainable, there's a balance that you can achieve within transformation and thinking through what can be done and which bits can be innovated and which pieces need a little bit more in terms of execution. An example of being too execution driven might be if the team is executing on lots of short-term projects without getting towards the bigger picture or getting something that is truly scalable, just executing on smaller one-off pieces on demand over time. That doesn't really lead you to a future that a futurist might dream of, for example. Digital transformation requires both disruptive thinking and structured execution to drive lasting change. So, for example, applying the process of innovation management or evaluating on a regular basis when to stop investing or when to increase investment in a particular innovation, ensuring that you've got some guardrails in place, ensuring that your innovation isn't overly driven by personalities can be very helpful as well, and to ensure that there's some rigor and an understanding of one's risk thresholds or the organization's risk thresholds when moving forward. And sometimes during transformation, what can happen is that you need to be very specific and focused about where you're going to innovate, so that because it pulls so many resources, it often pulls some of your best people into innovation when they might be needed elsewhere during a transformation. Or perhaps the level of risk due to a transformation is so high that you need to manage it somehow overall across the organization so that you're taking less risky moves in one area and focusing the risk somewhere else, or the risk appetite somewhere else. So it's something that you can be very strategic about. And there's lots that's been written about innovation management, so I won't get into that here. But I did want to just raise the idea of how do you manage innovation and execution during transformation or as a fundamental foundation for your transformation. So let's look at the first persona or archetype today. I'm introducing to you the futurist. And as the futurist, I'm using the historical figure of Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, so the idea of the futurist is envisioning what's possible even before the tools exist. And this sees past current limitations and helps to imagine a different future. And strictly speaking, I always think of transformation as something that really changes an entire organization and really takes it forward into something that wouldn't be possible with current tools, and maybe very much technology enabled or driven or led. And it may change in the entire business model for an organization, which is often very hard for an organization to imagine. Let's look a little bit at Leonardo da Vinci, who's a polymath whose work spanned engineering, anatomy, architecture, and art. His notebooks contain designs for helicopters, tanks, and complex mechanical systems centuries ahead of their time. His ability to think beyond his era and conceptualize advancements that would not be realized until much later makes him a quintessential futurist. Now, he represents vision without constraint, which is a crucial role in transformation because you often are working with so many constraints for the current state, where leaders must think beyond today's reality. His ability to see possibilities beyond his immediate environment mirrors the mindset needed for digital transformation. Now, while he was brilliant, many of his ideas were never realized, and some might criticize him for that, for focusing on too many ideas and never seeing them through. But that's why you have the rest of the team. So a visionary alone isn't enough, and there needs to be structure to turn that vision into reality. When I think about transformation, I think about ensuring that you don't get overly caught up in problem solving as the only driver for transformation, because so many problems are really rooted in the current state, right? So you can get lost, especially as an engineer who loves problem solving, you can get lost in trying to solve the spaghetti of problems that make up for the present. And what you need is also to balance that with someone who can break open the box of what's possible. Someone who doesn't just see a constellation of problems to be solved, but also sees something else, something different that can give you something of a North Star. But it needs to be tempered and measured in order to also be able to translate that to something that everyone can understand, that everyone can see and get behind, and move forward together as a team against. So that is the futurist, and that is our first pivotal player for digital transformation that we are introducing appropriately. Now, the second player for transformation that we're going to introduce is the information alchemist. And for the role of information alchemist, we've introduced the lovely Ada Lovelace. This information alchemist is critical for transformation because they translate vision into structured, actionable insights based on data. And without them, ideas stay theoretical. So how do you translate the information that you have into something that helps to move you forward, complementing the futurist in terms of which actions to choose to take or which future that you want for your organization? So Ada Lovelace, for those of you who might not be as familiar with her, was a 19th century mathematician who worked on Charles Babbage's analytical engine, conceptualizing the first computer algorithm. She recognized that computers could process not just numbers, but any information represented in symbolic form, making her one of the earliest thinkers to grasp the potential of programming. She saw beyond raw data and numbers, realizing that structured logic could unlock untapped potential, much like data scientists do today in digital transformation. Lovelace's ability to foresee the application of computational logic helped lay the groundwork for modern computing. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that data and structure are essential in turning concepts into repeatable, scalable execution and in deciding which areas not to scale as well. I've always tried to ensure that there was a data person or a data team represented who could help with the data strategy, understand structured and unstructured data, and pull that all together into the magic that happens. There are hundreds to thousands of decisions that need to be made within digital transformation all the time. And especially when you need to manage various stakeholders across an organization, you need the data to help drive a lot of those decisions. Otherwise, you won't be able to see a clear path through the personalities and the goals and ambitions of your transformation. You'll need the data to help to lead you and to lead the transformation. There's so much that can be said about the importance of turning data into structured, actionable insights. I've built platforms and solutions where that is critical for every player, from the client and their understanding of the experience and the direction that you're taking with your transformation, whatever solution it is that you're bringing forward, what data is underlying that is important for your clients, all the way to internally to your employees and to understanding how to deploy your resources within a transformation as well. Often a whole business case or the multiple business cases that sit within a transformation succeed or fail based on that data. And sometimes you need to step back and start at what data do we even have and where are we speaking a common language and what are the gaps that we need to bridge before we can even start to move towards a place where we've got actionable insights and getting everyone's common agreement and alignment around that. And that is where the information alchemist can help you. All right, let's move to the third persona of today's mini-series. This one is one of my favorites. It is the role of the closer. And for the role of the closer, I've got the wonderful Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great ruled Russia for over 3 decades and was instrumental in modernizing the country's governance, legal systems, and cultural institutions. She introduced reforms in education, codified laws, and expanded Russia's influence. Now, unlike Da Vinci and Lovelace, Catherine was focused on execution, ensuring that policies were implemented effectively and that transformation took hold. Again, unlike Da Vinci, she didn't just imagine change, she made it happen, proving that execution is the backbone of transformation. Her reforms reshaped Russia and created lasting institutional changes, mirroring the role of a transformation leader who ensures strategic initiatives are followed through. Her rule might have been seen as autocratic by some, and perhaps self-serving to some. Others might say that it would have been necessary to consolidate her power, the actions that she took. A great executor takes vision and makes it real while managing resistance and ensuring buy-in. I've played the role of the closer within transformation as a sponsor for a digital transformation, but I also try to delegate this responsibility as much as possible to people on the team, like a product owner or somebody who's playing a product owner role, for example, whose role is to be the voice of the client or the voice of the stakeholders. That is key. And they can negotiate on behalf of the transformation. And that is often a role that is well placed for a product owner within a digital transformation. I've also relied on a skilled closer as a right-hand person within digital transformation. You need someone who's a master navigator, who knows all the players and all the people, who understands how to get things done, not just at a point in time, but what it will take to get things done over time as the transformation evolves, and what the weight of those changes feels like, and how to continue the momentum of moving things forward and the impacts that are needed, and who is that person who is behind the scenes negotiating things that you don't even know about. So you might have a front of house negotiator and a back of house negotiator who is able to close the deal at the end of the day and to pave the way for the orchestrator of the digital transformation or for the digital transformation dream team itself. So make sure that you have one or more closers, and that will ensure that you've got the execution that you need to innovate and execute within a digital transformation. I hope you enjoyed that. I want to emphasize that this is open for debate and discussion. Without some of these folks, a digital transformation just isn't going to be possible, and having the right team is key. Without, that visionary, you can get stuck in the current state and never move far enough beyond the current state so that you end up sliding back into it. Without data abilities, you don't know where to go, and you have very little on which to base your decisions on and your actions and the experience that you want for everyone at the end of the day, and the progress that you want and the KPIs that you're trying to meet, the OKRs. It's great to have ideas and theory, but is that enough to justify the investment that's required? And if you're happy moving forward with the theory, and that's where you're at as an organization, then fantastic. But isn't it great also to have someone who can pull that data together for you and to help interpret that, and who has that curiosity that's needed in order to drive the really less obvious, much less obvious insights sometimes, or to reinforce the more obvious ones. And then without execution, there's too much burden on the rest of the team. Imagine everyone trying to close all of their own sort of pieces at the same time or all over the place and not in a coordinated way. A closer knows what needs to be closed first, understands the sequencing and the priority within a transformation, and helps to focus the whole team around what needs to be closed, because sometimes you need multiple people who are focusing on closing that one piece from multiple aspects of the organization. And that closer isn't going to be just on your execution team. It's going to be someone who is a closer on the part of the business or on the part of finance as well. So build a network of closers if you can for your digital transformation. And then that's the way to move everything forward. So balance risk and innovation. Don't let execution kill creativity, but also encourage the big picture thinking and the structured planning with the execution for all of those pieces that you need. So let me know what you think of this and which role do you think you'll play. And I'll start producing some of those baseball cards for distribution as well. And maybe I'll do some tarot-style readings at some point so that if you are the closer, I'll tell you not to go to any meetings that day and we'll have a little fun with this. So thanks so much for tuning in, and best of luck with your transformation.